Welcome back to what I wish I'd known before I started self-publishing. I am Carly with Dragon Key Press, and today we are going to do an in-depth look at copyright. I'm getting my technical information quoted from How Stuff Works on their page on copywriting, and DoNotPay.com, where they talk about fair use copyright law. Okay. At least in the United States, copyright is something you automatically have complete control over your original creations or works, just for creating it. So as soon as you have made it, it's yours, you have the rights, and technically nobody else can claim them. From How Stuff Works, the Constitution says Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Copyrights and patents are the only forms of intellectual property with an historical basis in the Constitution. All other forms of intellectual property rely on common or statutory law for their authority. As I said in a previous episode, copyright should not be confused with patent or trademarks. A few things to know: as soon as you've created it, as long as it's not infringing on the creation of someone else or plagiarizing, then you own the copyright to it, the right to distribute, display it, own it, etc. Each country will have variations in what exactly fits into that when it comes to basing it off of someone else's work, such as fan fiction. But unless it's done with the permission of the original creator, it's usually considered plagiarism, and should not be shared with the general public for any kind of monetary compensation, not to be confused with fair use. And some creators forbid the creation of fan content at all, but that's an entirely different kettle of fish than what we're currently talking about. Copyright is automatic for the life of the creator plus 70 years. After that, it goes into the public domain and is up for grabs. There are a lot of older books and other creations in this category that are regularly taken, brushed off, reimagined, or sometimes republished as is by an independent entity. This is not the same as plagiarizing, as the copyright term has expired and the work is no longer protected. It is good to note that sometimes the copyright is sold off or given to another party, including family members, friends, or even companies. They have the option of renewing said copyright through republication, usually changing a few things here and there, and re-registering it with the Copyright Office. Registering your copyright is not necessary, but it is certainly helpful and recommended. It helps protect the copyright on your creations and serves as proof that you created it when you created it. There are some people who talk about a poor man's copyright, where you basically send yourself a dated, certified through the mail version of whatever to yourself as proof of when you created it. But that doesn't really hold up in court these days. Okay, let's go back to how it works. In order to qualify for copyright protection, a work must be original to the author. To be original, the work must, 1. have been independently created by the author rather than being copied from another work. 2. It must have at least a minimum degree of creativity. 3. If those two conditions are not met, the work will not qualify as original and is not entitled to copyright protection. However, a work still qualifies for copyright protection if it includes non-original elements. For example, if an author rearranges non-original elements in an original way, the compilation will be considered original and qualify for copyright protection. And 4, it is important to note that a copyright protects only the expression of an idea. It does not protect any functional features or characteristics of the works. That's where you go into trademarks. It is good to note at this time the concept of fair use, which I've already mentioned, and it usually constitutes using someone else's material in a manner not meant to generate profit. According to the article DoNotPay.com's Fair Use Law article, which I referenced earlier, the defense based on fair use in cases of copyright infringement can be invoked if the original content was used in a non-commercial manner. You can't make money from it. The instances that qualify include scholarship, research, education, transformative use, as in creating new content based on copyrighted work, commentary, parody, or criticism, and what qualifies as transformative use may be difficult to determine, as shown in Warner Brothers Entertainment's versus RDR Books case. It turned out that creating a Harry Potter encyclopedia that uses significantly copyrighted material verbatim doesn't fall under fair use, in case you wondered. While there might be certain exceptions, the general rule is that any permissionless use of copyrighted content for commercial purposes counts as copyright infringement, even in cases of educational or scientific content. Keep that in mind. I won't go into the whole list of items that qualify for copyright at this time, but it is long and includes more than just written material. Things like plays and music and so forth do count, but it is good to note that even if you don't have your work published, it is still protected under copyright law, at least in the United States. There are things that cannot be copyrighted, though, such as titles, meaning book titles, names, words, slogans, short phrases, familiar symbols and designs, discoveries, principles, procedures, concepts, listing of contents and ingredients, works not fixed in a tangible form, like a speech that wasn't written down or a choreographic work not recorded or notated, for example. Some of those items, however, can be used when creating a trademark, when they are specific to a certain brand. It is always a good idea to use the copyright symbol in your book formatting, usually in the front part of the book, as a means of telling the world that your content is not up for grabs. But it is still also a very good idea to actually register your copyright with the Copyright Office or equivalent. Why? Well, because then there is a registered paper trail proving you own the creation to said work in case of plagiarism, which happens more than most might think. And, like I said earlier, the poor man's copyright registration, sending it to yourself in certified mail, does not count. Even big corporations have been known to use copyrighted material without permission or appropriate compensation to the creator. Having your work registered gives you a legal leg to stand on in proving you own the work should such an issue arise. And yes, there is a fee to register, and that fee changes. When I last checked, it was like $40, but that was before the pandemic hit. Just be prepared to pay that fee when the time comes, and know that the time to process it all might take a lot longer than you probably expect, depending on how many requests are currently in the system and how many people they have currently working there. I'm still waiting back on some of mine. It's taken a while. But we'll get into more detail about that later when we come to the point of process that actually involves filing for your copyright registration. As an added bonus and clarification about a misconception regarding copyright, as quoted from The Complete Idiot's Guide to Self-Publishing, very awesome book. If you don't have it, I so highly suggest it. You cannot copyright a title. You might be able to trademark your title, but you can't actually copyright it. So while the title with its specific lettering for Harry Potter is copyrighted, the actual name is not. So you can have characters called Harry Potter. But if it even looks like it can be associated with the brand, aka trademarked material, you're going to be in hot water for using it. So just go with something that isn't so iconic. I hope that gave you a little better understanding of how copyright works and what it is, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message or ask in the comments, and I will try to answer them in a future episode, possibly its own individual little thing. I hope you enjoyed learning about this topic, and I hope to see you for the next one.